Hi, this is Stephen van Kampen-Lewis. It's August 22nd, 2020, and I'm going to do a show and tell today about two white flowered orchids. Both are from the New World and both are completely unrelated to one another. The first one is a Cattleya hybrid. Actually, it's a primary cross, and I think, I'm kind of a species snob. You'll see crosses on here on my channel fairly regularly, but by and large, I am a species snob. I really enjoy the species, but I also enjoy primary hybrids almost as much as the species. If 5 or 6 years ago you had asked me what one of my favorite orchids was, and old me would never have ever guessed that future me would say that a hybrid was one of my favorite orchids. Much less a mass-produced cloned hybrid. So it's very unusual, but this is Cattleya Callistoglossa, and it is just one of my favorite orchids. And I want to show you what this guy looks like. So this is not actually its best bloom, as you can see. All three blooms on this particular spike are fairly crowded, but at the end you really get to see what this one looks like. I'm going to put it down here on the bench and have it next to me. It's pretty close to hand sized, and as you can see, it's just absolutely amazing. It's pristine. You can see a streak, which is not from the flower. It comes from watering here on the lateral sepal here. See if I can get this close to the camera, and it's just amazing. Super pale. The yellow in the lip there is just absolutely gorgeous. And the scent is super amazing. I would say that it smells kind of like Fruit Loops, which is the purpurata parent. So this is a primary hybrid of what used to be Laelia purpurata, is now Cattleya purpurata and Cattleya varsavixii. Apparently they found two alba clones, crossed them, and they came up with this Cattleya Callistoglossa, and the clonal name is Taylor, Taylor, and it's cloned, it's mass produced. You can get this fairly regularly. I got this one from Kawamoto Orchids over there in Hawaii a bunch of years ago, and it was a blooming size plant for a crazy cheap price. I used to visit Kawamoto Orchids when I lived on Oahu. I used to visit them fairly regularly. They have really cool plants, really great orchids, really great price, especially for the Hawaiian vendors. Can be pretty expensive because it's an expensive place. But anyway, so I was kind of wondering why this particular spike was so crowded when I was pulling this plant out. But check it out. It looks like the whole plant is leaning this way. So I guess I've been growing this one in an area that was a little too shady, and the plant is leaning for light. And you can see the new growth here is just maturing, and that's leaning. Normally these guys grow straight up. So this is one of those plants where it really has the best of both parents. So the plant itself is it's a large mature plant, but the spacing between the bulbs is very small. As you can see, it doesn't ramble. It doesn't grow very far away from the last growth, and that's definitely inherited from the purpurata parent. The shape of the bulbs is also very purpurata, where you have these sort of skinny bulbs that grow straight up. That's another purpurata characteristic, is the bulbs grow straight up. Varsavixii is it's a little more, the bulbs tend to lean a little bit more, a little less neat in its growth habit. It rambles a little bit more. So this particular clone of this cross inherited the purpurata scent. It inherited the purpurata growth pattern, which is really nice. It's super temperature tolerant, loves the heat. I suspect that the Varsavixii parent and the Purpurata parent mean that this one can take pretty cold temperatures. I think this winter it got down close to freezing several times in my greenhouse accidentally, and this one didn't miss a beat at all. And then the flowers themselves are very reminiscent of Varsavixii, which used to be called Cattleya gigas. Gigas, G-I-G-A-S, was because the flowers are gigantic on Varsavixii. So I'm going to show you the flowers once again, and you can see that that is not the flower shape of Purpurata, which has that long tubular lip typically. That is a very Varsavixii shape. So this particular clone really got the best of both parents. Got the best of the Purpurata, got the best of the Varsavixii, and I absolutely love it. I'm always excited when this blooms. I'm always excited to stick my nose in it when it blooms. But when I put it back into its growing spot, I'm going to be conscientious of the shading and see if I can give this one some space so that the growths start growing straight up again. I'm also going to stake it. You can see that this is, the wiggliest one has the flowers on it. So this guy should be putting out its roots pretty soon, and I want it to be in one spot and not have the roots die because the whole plant is flopping around. Anyway, that's my Callistoglossa. The other plant that I want to show you is Mexipedium xerophyticum. This is a species that may or may not be extinct in the wild. It is very interesting. Let's see if I can get, so this particular flower didn't open up quite right, but I figured I'd show it to you guys anyway. It's a little wonky. I'm gonna put my hand behind it so that the camera can focus on it. And you can see that it's just this little miniature white slipper orchid. And I'm going to show you the growth habit here in a second, but I want to chat about it real quick first. Basically, this is a species that grows on limestone cliffs in Mexico, and there was one known population, and there were several clones that were collected from that. In fact, this is one of those clones. I can't remember which clone it is, and I'm going to have to look that up because that's important information. I didn't put it on my name tag for some reason, so I'm gonna have to look that up and redo my name tag. But basically, this species was known from one location. A few clones were collected, and then a fire came through and destroyed the whole thing. So there's a good chance that this is close to extinct. I did read an article saying that they found another population somewhere. Obviously, they're not going to tell anybody where it is because of collection and overcollection. But it's an interesting species that is super bulletproof. It grows in just about any conditions. It takes, our crazy heat in stride. It gets down to cold temperatures in stride. The species name is xerophyticum with an X, denoting that it grows in xerophytic conditions, which is not necessarily true. So it grows in dry parts of Mexico, but it's attached to limestone cliffs that have water seeping out. So it is not exactly xerophytic, but it grows just fine next to your Cattleyas in bark. I redid this one in mostly sand, about 75% sand and 25% peat moss, which is acidic. So underneath that, I put, here in Austin, everything's on limestone, so I put a bunch of limestone rocks on the bottom. So as the roots grow down, they're still going to get that limestone rocks, which they like and which they appreciate from nature. The sand and the peat hold a little moisture longer. And since I have redone this in this particular mixture, this plant has really exploded. It used to do well for me before, but now it's really, really exploded. And I redid it because I noticed that the new growths they would put out their new roots and then they would just die off quickly. So I think it was too dry in what was just a regular bark media that I grow all my Cattleyas in. So I redid this, and I'll show you here real quick. So you can see the sand and the peat, and you can see some of these older leaves are dying off. I got a little sunburn on some of these older ones, but the new ones are super green, super big. This is an older one. This grew last year. This one is doing really nicely, and you can see all these new leads are being put out. These little guys here, new lead, and then of course the flower that we're talking about. Again, this is not a great bloom. Normally it's very symmetrical, and but I'm going to show you again. You can see that there's another bud there and another bud coming up there. So it's a sequential bloomer. It'll bloom over and over again on this same spike for, I don't know, a couple months at least. I think each flower lasts 2 to 3 weeks, and then another one will open up. And sometimes you'll have two open at the same time, but that doesn't usually happen. You know, and I can see additional blooms being created behind the ones that are in bud right now that we can see. Again, not a fussy species. Like I said, it's called xerophyticum because it's from dry parts of Mexico, but its exact habitat is fairly moist seeps, limestone seeps, but it seems to grow alongside Cattleyas nicely. And again, I repotted it in sand and peat to get a little more moisture around the roots, and it has absolutely loved this. And again, there are limestone chunks on the bottom of this pot. So anyway, that's what I wanted to show you guys today. I hope you found it useful. If so, give me a like, subscribe, and I will see you guys next weekend. Bye.